Hi, my name is Jenke Garcia, and this is my presentation on the Sampoong department store and the need to plan well. Let's get started. There are some topics that I want to go through in this presentation. The first off being the construction of the Sampoong department store, the collapse of the store, the cause for the collapse, the need to plan well, the problem with not planning well, and the solution to plan well. Let's get started with the first one, the construction of the Sampoong department store. The construction. The Sampoong department store was constructed in 1987, and it took approximately 3 years to complete site construction. Throughout that time, it had many changes. Originally, it was intended to be an apartment complex, but it was changed to be a department store by chairman of Sampoong, Lee Jun. Lee Jun had many design changes that he brought to the first construction company that he hired, but this first construction company noticed that these changes caused a lot of structural instabilities. They brought these insecurities and these worries about structural instabilities to Lee Jun, but Lee Jun wasn't very happy with that, so he decided to fire that construction company and hire his own personal construction company. Originally, the Sampoong department store had 4 floors, right? Because it was going to be a department store. But Lee Jun decided that he wanted to make it 5 floors, the 5th floor being a roller skating rink. These changes caused, again, as we previously stated, a lot of structural instabilities. Many of the columns that were once needed for that there were in the original blueprints and design for this construction were taken out completely. There still were many, but one of the most important ones were taken out. Not only that, they were decreased in their width and in the space between them, greatly decreasing their strength and the amount of load and stress that they could have inserted on them. That they could support. In addition to all of these changes, Lee Jun decided that to change later on as they were constructing the roller skating rink instead into a food court. Of course, we know that a food court has a lot of machinery, to cook and refrigerate the food and, of course, give it to the consuming customers. Not only that, in a food court, there's a lot of tables, chairs, and people sitting down for long periods of time eating, therefore adding more and more stress on the columns that were supporting that floor. Let's move on. Apart from the structural instabilities caused by the removal and resizing of columns, big, loud, and heavy air conditioners on top of the building were dragged from the side of the roof, from this side to this side of the roof, due to complaints from neighboring residents. These units were very, very loud, and a lot of the neighbors and people around the Sampoong department store filed a lot of complaints for them, because disturbance of peace. So Lee Jun decided to move them to the side, and usually when you move such large and heavy units, you use cranes to support these things, and you pick it up and you drop it down into the location that you want to put it. Instead, they were dragged and pulled, forming many cracks on the floor of the roof, which grew more and more as time passed. This was very detrimental because, as we stated, they grew more and more as time passed, up to, if I'm not mistaken, 4 inches wide. These cracks were 4 inches wide. And it was a lot of, honestly, sadly, because of negligence and poor leadership in this decision. Next, we want to talk about the collapse of the Sampoong department store. In the year 1995, this building only lasted 5 years. In the year 1995, the cracks on the roof grew so big under the weight of the air conditioners that they gave way and the air conditioners fell through, falling down each floor subsequently. It first fell from the roof to the 5th floor, but after that, it just kept falling and falling and falling and falling all the way down into the 1st floor until all that was left was just a big hole in space between the entrance and the rest of the north wing of the building. The entire south wing of the building, as you see here, came crashing down and collapsed under the patrons that were still inside the store. It was very, very tragic that, you know, no form of evacuation plans were made. That because within the research that I searched, a lot of the patrons could hear the cracks growing. They could literally hear it banging within the store, and some patrons heard it, but at the time that they heard it, it was a little too late, and it came crashing down. Having said that, I want to talk about the need to plan well, because although there were many problems that caused this, one of them that I want to talk about was planning well. One of the biggest problems that caused this tragic collapse was failure to plan well. If the civil engineers assigned to this project took the time to create ways to please the demands of their employer, Lee Jun, they could have made a construction plan effective enough to satisfy the standards, the safety standards, and the employer's requests. Of course, Lee Jun's requests weren't very ethical and moral. They weren't very educated in his the limit of his understanding. But I think that even if those requests were made, us as civil engineers, we have an important job to engineer ways to solve those problems of design that people bring to us, and try to figure out ways in which we can do it well. But this takes time to plan well. I believe that it is very important to take time to plan well and make things that aren't only effective but efficient. I want to talk about next the problem when not planning well. If we as civil engineers negate the importance of planning well, we end up with structural tragedies like the Sampoong department store collapse. By hastily formulating construction plans, we risk compromising safety, resulting in inefficient and poorly constructed structures. We make these structures not only for the people that surround us and the people that we love, like our families and friends, but we make them for the people that are going to use it, the people that surround us. So whenever we design these structures, we have to think about those things. We have to think about the people that are going to use it, and we have to make sure that we take the right amount of time and we wisely use our time to not cut corners in construction planning. So, having known this, what's the solution to planning well? Let me give it to you. The solution to planning well, by taking the necessary time to carefully plan and design construction projects, we can effectively meet customer demands, employer demands, while adhering to safety regulations. The key is to utilize our time wisely to intentionally create something both effective and efficient. So, in conclusion, planning well in construction is crucial for creating effective and efficient structures that last long and are durable. Not only do we make these structures for ourselves, our friends and family, but for the good of anyone who uses them. As I said before, we don't make these things only for our immediate circle, but for our surrounding neighbors, for the society that we live in as well. We want to make these things that last long too. Sometimes we may think that it is not efficient or cost efficient to take the time to plan well, but it is. We have to think on the long run. Maybe right now it's not super cost efficient, right? But don't get me wrong, we still have to be efficient about these things. We're still good engineers. We have to take the time to plan well so that in the long run, it's worth it. And we don't have to spend even more money reconstructing or even demolishing like they did with the Sampoong department building, because all the money invested in that building was all for nothing. Because although the north wing was still constructed, they ended up demolishing the whole thing because of the tragedy and how what it symbolized. So, yeah. By taking the necessary time to plan, design, and build, we can greatly increase the likelihood of producing high quality structures and reduce structural disasters, tragedies. Thank you. This has been my presentation on the Sampoong department store and the need to plan well. My name is Jankel Garcia. Thank you very much.